nose for now, so it's So now we've basically done 3 different stages of mouth being open with creating space and having all the sound be brilliant, pingy, and focused. So if I go, my mouth is closed, now my mouth is starting to get open, and now it's fully open. So we have these different stages of that. So everybody take the N one more time, and just relax the tongue against the bottom teeth. No tension in there at all. And again, space inside. Now, if all we were to do is maintain that same feeling and maintain that same space and open to an oo vowel from the M, so it's going to go. What does that sound like? It may be hard to hear within the group, but even just that little sound, because you guys had the same amount of space, and you were all singing with brilliance or brightness, we weren't trying to sing bright, we just were, because I just said maintain the same feeling of the M. We heard that note, and we were just singing, you know, we had a couple down on the low octave, but was the only note for the most part. Do that one more time. So space, sing the M first. Check with this is when you open to the oo, go ahead and plug the nose again. And ready, and if you feel like your sound did this, listen once. What's happening is we've got a little bit of, we lost the space inside. Remember I was talking about maintaining that space. We want to think lift up here so that it closes off the air from going through my nose. What we're looking for ultimately is where the sound doesn't change if I plug my nose. Do that one more time on M. 2. So now real quickly, the next one in the sequence would be N, and then we're going to open to a nice E vowel. And if you notice, N sets up E really well. It doesn't just spread. Ready, and. And again, that's probably the toughest one in terms of the sound going through the nose, because the E has a tendency to sort of be kind of lazy on that. So we would think, and really think lift on that. Do that one more time. Yeah, lots of overtone in that. We're not even creating a 4-part chord yet. So imagine if everybody's singing like this, and they have that nice open sound, that very natural, brilliant sound, not manufactured, not sing brighter or anything like that. How many of us have been told to sing brighter? Let's see here, how many years have I been barbershopping? 12? I was just told at my last email, James, you need to sing brighter. What does that mean? So, yeah, for a lot of us it means different things, and so the idea is to make sure that the sound that we create is the most natural one possible. And so if we're needing brightness in our sound, there's probably some other stuff that's getting in the way, and so that's what I try to avoid generally when I'm working with singers, is to just say, sing brighter, or that sort of thing. So the last 2 items, and then we'll take maybe a short little break, and then get to some individuals if you want, is these are specific to the barbershop style. Somebody had said that they were fairly new and they were wanting to learn a little bit more about the style. So the first idea is that in barbershop, we don't have to worry about an orchestra. We don't have to worry about you know, a piano or an organ. We don't have to cut through with our consonants. You know, if you go to a symphony with a big choral, you know, Messiah or Carmina Burana, if any of you have ever seen that or attended that, you know, it's very using one from the Messiah. For the Lord God omnipotent reigneth. And they're really trying to spit those consonants out because they have to cut through the orchestra. The orchestra is creating this nice kind of wash of sound, and if the choir doesn't articulate, you're just going to hear, and it's just going to sound like So they have to articulate that. In barbershop, we don't really have to worry about that. Number one, because we sing in English just about 99.999% of the time. And then number two, because we're singing songs that are familiar to our audience most of the time. Again, I would say 99% of the time we're singing songs that most of the audience probably has at least heard before. So we don't have to work as hard. So I've come up with sort of 3 rules of barbershop diction that I find really help kind of clear things up for everybody. The first one has to deal with hard consonants. Anything that you can't sustain a pitch on. Consonants like k or f or t or sh. Anything like that that you can't actually sustain a note on. Those are hard consonants. And with those, you never really have to do anything more than regular conversation in barbershop. Just as I'm talking to you right now, I would never really need to use, unless it was for a really dramatic effect, really any more than that sort of conversational level approach to my hard consonants. Let's do a little experiment with, let's just keep on heart of my heart. And let's overdo the consonants just once. So every single one is going to be like this. So fresh up A flat if you don't mind. So all consonants are overdone. Ready, and heart of my heart, I love you. Life would be naught without you. Take your dominant hand, like this. It's usually what happens anyway when we're overdoing those consonants. My college choir director used to say after we would be working diction on some classical piece, he'd say, take your dominant hand, wipe the back of the head of the person in front of you. So then it brings us to our second rule, which involves singable consonants, which are the ones that you can sustain notes on. It's consonants like any one of those. We want to give just a little bit of extra emphasis to, just to create that nice smoothness in sound, so we don't get that choppy feeling that we had when we were doing "Heart of my heart, I love you." So certain consonants will have less than others. Like, we don't want to go "Heart of my heart, the R will be a little bit less. But consonants like L on "I love you," consonants like those we want to give just a little bit of extra attention to, a little bit of extra energy to, so that they come through in the texture. So think about "Heart of my heart" again, and anything that you can sustain a pitch on, go ahead and maybe give a little bit of extra emphasis to. Anytime you run into a hard consonant, just think conversation. Heart, ready, and heart of my heart, I love you. Life would be naught without you. Cool. So again, it just creates that smoother sound, and we'll get to the reason for that smoother sound in a second. The last rule, in terms of barbershop diction that I find works, is to remember what we call diphthongs, which are any words that have more than one vowel. So words like time. In a classical situation, you might just hear, the time is 5 o'clock, that sort of thing. But in barbershop, we want to, we call it turning the diphthongs. And so the word time, if you break it down and mathematically analyze it, time. It's got an A and an E to it. A word like boat is not just bolt. If we were to just do the bolt, the O vowel, it would just be bolt. We've got boat, boat.
Unless you're in Texas, then it's about.
About.
Not quite, about.
What are some other diphthong words?
Smile.
Your.
Smile. Your.
Mine.
Mine. Life. Life would be not lie. Without.
Not. Not.
Not.
Note.
Note. So we've got a lot of those, especially in, let's change songs for this example. We've got a lot of them in Wild Irish Rose. Bum bum, my. So we're turning my wild. Go ahead and make it kind of ridiculous right now, just to make the point. Ready? And. My wild Irish rose, the sweetest flower that grows. So that gets a little bit ridiculous. And obviously we don't want to be too technical about it. We don't want to say, okay, it needs to be 80% on and then 20% E. My wild Irish rose. You know, it never gets that technical, but just giving that little bit of extra emphasis, a little bit of extra attention to those diphthongs, as well as the singable consonants, just creates that nice, smooth sound. And that gets to the last little bit of analogy that I'll give you. And that is that the barbershop sound, how many have heard the term wall of sound?
What?
Wall of sound. When likening barbershop music to, or when comparing it to another style. We use that term wall of sound to indicate that our sound really never ever should stop unless we're breathing or pausing for dramatic effect. So if we got, heart of my heart, I love you, life. As soon as I breathe, that's the only time that sound stops. And I liken it to a conveyor belt on an assembly line. My first job was on an assembly line. I built the smart carts at the airport. I was one of the guys that takes the two signs that says, welcome to Denver, and you clamp them together, and then you put it on. And it's clamp, clamp. But the point is that assembly line never ever stopped moving. And so the idea in barbershop is that it's like a conveyor belt, and that assembly line never ever stops unless we're breathing. And that our consonants, I mentioned the hard consonants just being like regular conversation, we just drop those right onto the conveyor belt. They never ever interrupt it. Heart of my heart, I love you, life would be. So on and so forth. Does that make sense? As an analogy? The last part of singing barbershop is to have fun. We've spent 45 minutes now talking technique. And technique is obviously the means by which we get there, and I believe that when we can work on our technique and when we consistently work on our technique, we ultimately have more fun, but never get so tied up in technique that it takes the fun away. I read a great little snippet on Perry Como the other day, and it was about his rehearsal ethic. And it was all about how Perry worked extremely hard in rehearsal, and he was really, really meticulous about how he wanted things. He would try things in different keys and how different things would sound and all this kind of stuff. But how would you describe Perry Como's voice on the records?
Relaxed.
Relaxed, free and easy. Just, so open and just so pleasing to listen to. And it's because he had done all that work in the onset, but then once he got in front of an audience, it was not about technique. You didn't really hear the technique. You just heard this awesome singer present whatever message he was trying to present. And so, at the end of the day, it's about affecting our audiences, and then getting the energy that they get, give back to us, and feeling good about it, and that sort of thing. So, and then getting more people to sing it, getting more people to experience. So, any questions at all?
It brought to mind a quick example of that. I used to bitch, I flew, and you have to do the checklist over and over, and IPs check you over and over. And I lost an engine out over the middle of the Pacific, and by the time I got through doing what I had to do, I realized that I didn't think about doing it. I did it because I had practiced it.
Yep.
And that's,
like you may have forgotten to check it off, but you did do it.
Yeah, I did do it. We do a follow-up checklist to make sure we did it.
Yep.
And sure enough, I had hit every switch and done everything, did not have a clue or memory of doing it. but I practiced it.
I do that when I drive sometimes.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, it was the principle, I learned.
Al asked